Okay, we're live. Hey, Claudia, how you doing?
I'm great. How are you, Maureen?
Good, good. Thanks for coming on the podcast. And one of the reasons I wanted to chat with you on the podcast, Claudia, was that we met in 2013, I think. So seven
Yeah.
years ago. Can you believe that was 7 years ago?
No, no, I can't. No, it's hard to believe.
7 short years ago, and we met through our kids. Do you want to tell everybody how we met?
Well, my son was struggling with huge addiction issues
Yes.
and mental health. And I was basically at my wit's end. We had been through numerous treatment programs and counseling and doctor's appointments and grief counseling and numerous things. And a friend of mine recommended ARC, which is the Alberta Adolescent Recovery Center. And it is a pretty intense program
Mhm.
and is not free. And I was not sure if I could handle it, but I needed to save my son. He was 17 years old, in really, really rough shape. And I needed to do something to save him.
Mhm.
So as a single mom, I do have a daughter as well, but as a single mom, I had been a widow for a while, and it's now 16 years. But at the time, my kids were everything, and they still are. So that was critical and crucial. And I was stuck. I was like, I just need someone to save my little boy.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
and like you say, you're stuck, and that's kind of the place that people get to
Mhm.
when they decide to do an intense program like
Yeah.
ARC, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, ARC is an adolescent um, treatment program here in Calgary, and that's where we met because then my boys went into the program after your son was already in there. So you were a little further along in the program when I showed up, and as it often happens when you go through a program like that, you develop lifelong friendships. You get to know people in a very deep and meaningful and very honest way,
Mhm.
and so those friendships tend to last, and ours certainly has as well.
Yes, it has. Yeah.
And so, we got to know each other a little bit through that program. Well, we got to know each other a lot through that program. I got to know your kids and you got to know mine, which was awesome. And then we started working together in leadership.
Right.
Yeah. And so you work at a college in town, and you were an adult education sort of coordinator facilitator, and
Mm-hmm.
you hired me. Bad move, Claudia. Bad move. Yeah, to do some leadership development and facilitation. And so I guess I'm going to ask you the broken open question because I kind of know where I want to go with this conversation, but I don't want it to be too scripted. So um, tell me about a time, Claudia, when you experience some adversity. And I mean, you've got lots to choose from.
Yeah, I do.
As you said, you're a widow and a single mom, and you've got two kids, and they've been through the ringer. So tell me about a time when you experienced some adversity that at the time felt like the end of the world, that in hindsight has proven to be a real gift to you.
Well, I have had my share of trauma and experiences that have not been a lot of fun. There's been a lot of loss and a lot of uh, growth, though, and a lot of lessons learned from all these different experiences. Having my son go through ARC was the longest 9 months of my life, I'm sure. But a huge revelation.
Hmm.
Like, it was just so powerful and so needed. I was there was so many other things going on at the time. My husband was a addict as well. And so not knowing and understanding addiction when he was struggling puts you in a downward spiral, and you just try anything and are determined to save them.
Mhm.
So I spent a lot of the time, both with my husband, but after he passed away, then my son, trying to save him, trying to do whatever it took to make it work. So learning that you can't control that. You can't control an addict. It's not your fault. Going through the lessons learned of a 12-step program, both with my son and as a family member. Learning that you need support from other people and can rely on other people, and you don't have to do it all yourself. And to not blame yourself was huge. It was so powerful to know that, okay, this is my little boy and he needs to get through this himself. And I can support him, and I can be there, and I can listen and reassure him, but he's got to want to do it. And being a mom, that's really hard, because you want to fix them, you want to take care of them, you want to do it for them, and yeah, you can't.
You want to rescue them.
Yeah. So it was challenging, and going through that, like you said, it was 7 years ago, and now my son is still clean and sober and almost on his 7th anniversary of AA, and I am overwhelmed with his journey and how well he's done and how happy he is and how successful he's become, which is, it's just, I'm so grateful.
Yeah.
But learning that and going through that, the amount of work and effort, it made you look at things differently. It made you think, okay, so maybe these things aren't as big a deal. Maybe you can just step back and you don't have to control everything. And it took a long time.
Yeah.
So
it changed your outlook for sure. It changed how you thought about yourself in relation to addicts in your life.
Oh, absolutely.
I would imagine there would have been some real carryover guilt and trauma after your husband died, right? And you couldn't save him.
Yeah.
And now you're watching your son, and I can't imagine the fear and frantic behaviors that you must have exhibited trying to, keep him alive.
Yeah.
Right. As you see him going down the same path.
Yeah. And so it was years.
Oh yeah. How long had he been struggling with addiction before you hit ARC?
5 years.
Oh.
And I was probably in huge denial, going, oh no, he's fine. He's just being a rebellious teenager. Yeah. He'll be okay. He'll grow out of this. He's doing okay in school. Was he? Not really. So you try to, you just try to make excuses.
Yeah, I hear you. Because it's too scary.
Oh, the fear was huge.
Too scary. Yeah. He can't be experiencing the same thing that your husband did. It can't be the same.
No.
It has to be something else. It's just normal teenager rebelliousness. Yeah. So when did you know when did you know it was serious?
Well, he ended up in the psych ward. He was picked up by the police. He was charged with numerous things, and I was forever going to the courthouse, and was forever putting him through. He was on probation for 5 years. There was just everything, and I'm like, this has got to stop. This has got to stop. I was exhausted. My daughter wasn't living at home at the time, but she was still living in the city, but I was stuck. So I went and talked to these people and said, I need help. And it was pretty obvious by the time they looked at his Facebook and talked to me for maybe half an hour, and they said, oh yeah, he's a fit.
Yeah. Isn't it funny how the outsider just looks at it and goes, yeah, he's got a problem.
Yeah, he's got a
same thing problem. Happened here too. We were like, well, we just know that he's using a lot of drugs and he's homeless, and but we're not sure he's an addict. It's like, we're like, yeah, this kid's got a problem.
This kid's got a huge problem.
Yeah, he's got a problem. Yeah, and it's interesting that you describe your son as being on probation. Like I know this kid. He is the gentlest soul.
Mm-hmm.
He is the sweetest boy. Like criminal? No.
Yeah.
Not even close. Yeah. But that's where you get to. What was the craziest thing you ever did in trying to manage him?
I used to follow him.
Yeah. We all did that.
I used to follow him and say, well, or I would take him to different counseling sessions and they would say, oh, he's doing great. And I'd be just over the moon. And then he'd disappear for 3 days.
Yeah. Yeah.
He came home, he disappeared. He came home one Christmas Eve and I was devastated. I had my daughter and some of her boyfriend's family over and he came walking in as if nothing had happened. Hi. I'm not even sure. I think he was on ketamine and I don't even know what else. And I said, you're on probation. You can't disappear. We're going to the police station tomorrow. Well, the police station, ironically, Christmas Day is closed. What is that? So then I had to basically lock him in the house. It was just bizarre.
Happy holidays.
Yeah, it was scary. So scary.
Terrifying, I would imagine.
Mm-hmm.
And embarrassing. Like you've got your daughter's boyfriend's family over for dinner, trying to pretend that you're having a normal Christmas celebration, and in comes this, high as a kite kid who's breaking his probation, and you've got to lock him up. Yeah, nothing weird there.
Nothing.
All is well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Silent night.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So you had some chaotic holidays then.
Yeah, I did. Certainly did.
Yeah. And the holidays are a tough time for people with mental health and addictions issues in the family.
Yeah. Yeah. It brings back trauma.
Yeah.
It brings back memories that a lot of them don't want to remember or even think about.
No.
So if you're in depression or you're in addiction of whatever, that's, if you're alone or you're scared or you're depressed, it's going to escalate.
For sure. And it's also a time when the idyllic life is shoved down your throat. Mm-hmm. And it's very hard to ignore how different your life is from the way you thought it would be. The world tells you it should be. We should all be together and have this warmth and love, and it's the time of giving and receiving, and we're all so happy and we're celebrating each other, and that is not the feeling for many, most people actually struggle through the holidays. But it's really tough when you've got a situation that's spiraling out of control. So you followed him around, locked him up, and then you finally cracked and said, "I need help. This isn't getting any better. This is getting worse." And off we go.
You feel so vulnerable.
Oh yeah.
Like you're just lost, so you're reaching for everything and anybody to give you any advice, any direction, any website. Even when my husband passed away, there wasn't things on Google like there is now. Like you can Google anything now and find out about addiction and all these bizarre synthetic drugs and what's happening anywhere in the world. But when my husband passed away, you had to go to Alberta Health. You had to go to a doctor's office or a clinic to find out pamphlets to actually get any information.
Yeah.
No one talked about addiction.
No.
Didn't exist.
No. And it's so shameful, right? Like, I mean, I don't want to, for me, I didn't want to call my kids addicts because my association with that word was so scary and so negative. I just couldn't bring the two together. Mm-mm. I felt like I was labeling them and being mean by saying that, right? Like, so it was just so, I mean, oh God. the association's so strong. So,
Yeah.
so you learned a lot. So you learned about what you described to me was I learned to be his mom. I learned that he had his own journey, that I couldn't control it. You know, that I needed to ask for help, that I needed to let go of managing him and the problem, right? And not blame yourself, right? You said, and that you can't do it all.
Yeah. Yeah.
How have those lessons played out for you in other experiences that you've had?
Well, working at post-secondary, like you mentioned, in a business and leadership role, it helped me listen to my teams. It helped me really actually hear what they wanted me to hear. So to sit back and actually say, okay, so what's going on? I was a huge problem solver with my kids, and it was hard to step back and say, okay, let's work through this. Let's brainstorm. Let's come up with an idea. And I found it easier to do at work than I did with my kids. In my role, working with corporate clients or working with other colleagues or other departments and stakeholders, it was important to listen, and it was important to have other opinions matter. And to understand that there's going to be diverse opinions. There's going to be different personalities. There's going to be different, some are a little arrogant, some are a little pushy, some are a little passive. And to understand how they are viewing whatever's happening in the meeting or the discussion, to really pick up on those clues, those actual points. So if they're being quiet, you need to know why and how to help them express themselves without saying what I want them to hear.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not trying to put words in their mouth. I'm not trying to actually direct the conversation. You can influence, but you need to listen. So going through ARC, you listen to huge trauma, huge issues with other families of all different walks of life, and different. You always think yours is the worst. You always feel that it's all about you and it's the worst situation ever. And then you hear all these other families going through horrific things. My son did not try suicide, as far as I know.
Yeah.
But I bet he was suicidal.
Yeah.
Some of the situations that came up with other families was horrific. So to learn to listen and really have empathy and be grateful, and to have just an understanding that it's not about you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's tough.
Would your son mind that you used his name, do you think?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Okay. We'll get his permission before we publish this podcast, and if it's not okay, we'll take his name out. Sound good? Okay. We'll just make sure. So if you're hearing his name on this podcast, we have permission to broadcast. Yeah, he's actually in the business, isn't he? Of helping.
Yes, he is.
Yes. He's quite accustomed to sharing his story. We just don't know if he's used to putting it on YouTube, so we'll just make sure that it's okay before we do that. It's interesting. I mean, because you talked about how it changed your attitude, but it sounds like it changed you. And what I hear in what you're describing is that the old way of being, and I'm gonna infer some things. You tell me if I'm right, please. Your old way of being was very much, you said I was a problem solver.
Yes.
And a lot of us who are good problem solvers, I'm a good problem solver too. What that really stems from often is a discomfort with a problem. This isn't okay, and I'm going to fix it.
Yeah.
right? And what it sounds like you developed was letting go of that fear. I mean, after you hear, like you say, you come to understand that people go through stuff.
Yeah.
And they come through it. There's not a lot, especially in an office setting or when you're managing people, that's going to throw you after you've been through a program like that.
Yeah.
Right? So the fear of, oh my God, this is awful, I got to change it. Oh my God, this is terrible, we got to fix this. Sort of like it resolves, and you can explore with a more open heart, I think, what's going on for people. You don't have that, you can let go of that frantic need to get rid of the discomfort. You're okay with living in it a little bit.
Yeah, hectic sometimes, but I don't feel I'm as judgmental as I was before, ARC.
Agreed.
And going, oh, it's them, sort of thing. Oh, it must be their fault, right? Well, it's not. It's not. It's an addiction, and until you understand addiction, you can't. You don't. It's a different world. I had no idea what the terminology is. The first time I was told, put your son in a peach ad, I went, what is a peach ad? These are words you don't hear until you're involved in that world. And then when someone else says, oh, I had to put my child in a peach ad, you're like, oh, that's awful, but I understand. Yeah, and I get it. And it's a safe place for them, and they'll be okay, and you can rest now. But to have that thrown in your lap from someone, you're like, what are you talking about? What is that?
It's true. I worked in healthcare, and do you want to tell everyone what a peach ad is, just so that they don't?
Oh, yeah.
Like,
so it's a peach ad. You need to go to a court and explain to a judge why your child is at risk of either harming himself or in dire need. And they basically lock them up in a safe environment with healthcare and counselors, and they are taken care of, and they detox basically for 10 days.
Court-ordered detox.
Yes. Yeah. But you have to go in and prove that your child needs this.
That's ugly.
It's so scary.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was lucky or an advantage that I had already been to court with him numerous times and in these same courtrooms. So I'm like, yeah, I can do this. I need to save him.
Yeah.
Help him.
Yeah.
So this was another element of it.
Wow. Yeah. And so then when you get to work, right, you take this, you go from that environment, right, where you've gone through this experience, and you're now managing people, and people are messy. People don't come to work and check their problems at the door, even though I used to really almost demand that of people, honestly. I really was not okay. I was terribly frightened of people needing my emotional energy at work. Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
It drove me to all kinds of ridiculous expectations and behaviors. But at any rate, I used to really wish that people could check their humanity at the door and just be good workers.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work. It doesn't work. People are complex, and people are whole human beings, and they come to work with issues, and they falter, and they struggle, and they need support, right? And now, here you are now a leader, right? Less judgmental, less suck it up, princess, and much more compassionate and empathetic, as you've said.
Absolutely.
And you've learned how to lead with your heart in a different way.
Yeah.
And that's what struck me when I started working with you, because I didn't know you before, right? I didn't know the before Claudia. I only knew the after Claudia. My experience of you was, I was in awe, actually, of your relationship-centered leadership approach. I loved it.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. And so that's what I got to see. I got to see the learned leadership skills that you exhibited, where you know what's going on with people that you work with.
Mm-hmm.
You
I certainly did.
celebrate milestones of the
Yes.
people are experiencing in your office.
Mm-hmm.
How they're doing matters to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All the time.
Yeah. It blows
All the
me
time.
away. Blows me away. Like you really are exceptional in that regard. And now you've gone through, I know that the organization's gone through a massive reorganization, like
Mm-hmm.
just massive. I mean, you guys, your department was going through a reorganization, and then over top of that, we had a new provincial government that was, slashing funding. So the whole organization started going through some transition and some change, and then we hit COVID,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you've got, the perfect storm
Oh,
happening
yeah.
for chaos in change, right?
Yeah.
And what tricks and tools from your toolkit have you had to pull out in this time of reorg and COVID and change? Like, how has what you experienced with your son and your husband helped you get through this?
Well, with COVID, it certainly made it different. My
Mhm.
whole team has been dispersed and relocated all over campus to different roles. We are working 99% on Zoom and MS Teams meetings and email. Um, I am grateful that my son and his partner actually come here every day to work. So that is wonderful. I'm not by myself. And I have two dogs that are great entertainment, if nothing else. Um, but the advantage of still keeping in touch with my team, even though they're not my team anymore, we're all dispersed, we're in different teams, through texting or video chats or just making that connection. I worked with some incredible facilitators like yourself and some of the other facilitators that you have interviewed already.
Mhm.
And the advantage of having them as friends, and you mentioned a relationship, it's more than just they worked for me or they worked with me. I know what their kids are doing. I know where they've traveled to. I know if someone in their family is not well. I check up on them, and it's reciprocated.
Mhm.
And there's milestones, and there is one of my colleagues just got two kittens, and she's so excited about them, and I keep checking in on them, and things like this. So the relationship is crucial, and it's sincere. It's
Yes.
not like, oh, I should do this. It
Mhm.
is truly sincere, and I feel that it's important to have to keep that connection even through COVID.
Mhm.
Not that I am very social. I love to be out, and when I was on campus, loved it. Loved it. Seeing people in line to pick up a coffee and things like that. The connection is
Mhm.
huge for me. Now that I've been home since mid-March, it's not so great. The advantage is I get to have lunch and dinner with my son every day
Mhm.
when he's not working. But
Mhm.
that's wonderful. He
Mhm.
will be going in the fall to U of A and to Edmonton. Like this, I am really grateful that I've been able to spend these months with him. To
Mhm.
know that at 5 o'clock I can shut down my computer and just walk downstairs and we can make supper together and joke or play cards after dinner or take the dogs for a walk. I wasn't doing that before. There's a lot more self-care now than I've ever done. Um, I'm spending a lot of time in my yard. I downsized my house in February, just before COVID hit.
Mhm.
And I am so glad I have. And now I'm in a smaller location, but it's beautiful. It's all I
Mhm.
need. Um, and it has everything I need. And I've been working in my flower beds and meeting the new neighbors and things like this. And it's been wonderful in
Mhm.
a really sad worldwide disaster, basically.
Yeah. Imagine if you had not gone through um, the adversity with your son, and you had not learned how to
Mm-hmm.
look after yourself,
Yeah.
and you had stayed obsessed with I'm gonna keep doing this air quote problem solving, because that's the way we reframe
Yes.
in a positive way
Yeah.
our obsessive management of others, right?
Yeah.
We're going to call ourselves good problem solvers, you know, and you were in this situation.
Mhm.
I mean, what do you think would be different?
Oh, I would think it'd be pretty chaotic. I don't know whether I would have downsized.
Mm.
Possibly not. Uh, my son had applied to go to Edmonton to university. He's done 3 years here at another post-secondary, and he's transferring. I knew he was leaving. Why would I need a huge house for myself?
Mm-hmm.
So these were huge steps that I went, I need to do this for me. I don't need a big yard. I don't need a 2,000 square foot home for me and 2 dogs. I don't. Like, it's time. There, years ago, I would not have thought of that. I would have went, oh, I can do this, just stick it out. But to be able to say, no, I want to be able to relax. I want to be able to travel again once COVID lifts and we can actually travel again. I used to travel a ton years ago and loved it, miss it. I had a milestone birthday, as you are aware, this spring, and my plan was to go to Aruba with a girlfriend. Well, that didn't happen, thanks to COVID. But I will travel again. And I will, maybe it won't be Aruba, but it will be somewhere. And there's so many other things I want to do. And so I have to work towards these goals. I need to downsize. I don't need a big house. I don't need the expense of a big house. I don't need the work of a big house. I need to reschedule this, reorganize this. So I guess the problem solving is more for myself.
Ah, there we go.
Yes.
Yes. So it's so fascinating, though, because I mean, when we were, as we're raised into mothers, we are taught to put yourself last, and that to look after yourself, to put your own needs at the top of the list is selfish.
Yeah.
And not what a good mother does. And yet it sounds like this has taught you to look after yourself and to let others look after themselves. And you do have a role, right, of influence, but not control. Right. Amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
The lessons that we were taught about what a good mother is actually quite, I'm gonna say, very destructive.
Absolutely it is. Absolutely. Yes. But that's the way I was raised too. So my mom and I had a great relationship, which was fabulous. And my 3 brothers are still busy with their families, but my mom was like, she was the rock. Everyone went to her. She was a problem solver. She had ideas, but she was very much her own woman and was very strong, which was wonderful role model.
Yes.
But it's not what moms do. They look after their kids. It's not the upbringing of the era I was brought up. You need to take care of them first.
Yeah. Take care of them at the expense of yourself. Like that was almost lauded, right? Like, good for you. You're such a good mom, right? You know, those moms that don't look after themselves. And then what happens is that's where all that empty nest crisis came in, right? The kid leaves and you don't know who you are, right? And you, without being a nurturer, what are you?
Yeah.
Right? Or a problem solver. And here you are, though, you've learned this, that you need to look after yourself and be, you know, his biggest cheerleader. But you need to look after yourself so that you can cheer him on, right?
Yeah.
And you know, what you're describing, you know, this, you know, I'm downsizing, I want to travel, you know, I want to do this, I want to do that, I miss this, I hear you, like, reclaiming your life, like, just like, okay, you know, he's got his own path. So does my daughter. They've got their lives to live. I am their mother. I'm here to cheer them on. And I am here to look after myself and not wait for someone else to save me.
Yeah. The martyr.
The martyr, right? We're so
Yeah.
good at that too.
Yes. Yeah. It's true. It's true. It takes a while to get there, and you feel guilty when you're trying to, oh, I should go for a massage, or oh, I'm going to travel, or I'm whatever. I'm just going to sit and have a glass of wine and outside and watch the neighborhood. And you're like, oh, I should really do something. But why? Why do you have to? Why can't you just sit and relax?
It's hard to learn that, isn't it?
It is.
Especially when you grow up codependent, right? Like, so, you know, we grow up as a person whose value is tied to how well you're helping other people.
Yeah.
And so to learn to find value in just helping you is tough. Good for you.
Yeah.
I love it. And I love too what you describe about, you know, that I'm thinking about you if you had not been through the adversity that you'd experienced, and here you are in COVID, and you're isolated, and you know, you're a problem solver, and you've got no problems to solve, right?
No.
Like,
No.
but you do have relationships to nurture, and you're an expert at that, right? Because
Yeah.
you've now, what I'm hearing you say, learned to approach these relationships with such an open heart. Which is
absolutely.
so amazing. Good for you. So what words of advice do you have for others? Let's pick two things. One would be for those of us who are out there and we're living with someone who's unwell and we don't know what to do. We might be doing Google searches, like you said, to find out about things. But if you Google like I am, like I do, that's not that helpful.
Sometimes.
I'm not a good Googler. What words of wisdom do you have for, or encouragement even for people like that?
Understand that it's not you, and to reach out. I really, when he was first really, really sick, to go to someone and say, I'm stuck, like I said earlier, I need help, I need a direction, I need to talk to someone who knows more, I'm lost, help me. And be okay with that, to understand that it's okay to need help, that you can't be a problem solver for everything, that you can reach out and someone will help you. I have many friends through ARC now, and some I see occasionally and some I don't, but the connection and the relationship is so powerful. When you see those people, it's like you've never left. The friendship and the depth of what we know of what's happened in our lives and what's going on is so sincere and truthful. You'll never lose it. But so if you can take that step and actually reach for help,
who should they reach out to?
Well, it really depends. Not always. I have 3 brothers, and there is one brother that I call when I'm stuck. And he doesn't live in this province, but he said, you need to talk to somebody there. I can't help you 3 provinces away, but I will listen to you, and I can help you, guide you, but I can't help you.
What a
You need to go to someone. So if it is an addiction issue, talk to ARC if you have children. I would highly recommend them to anyone. They saved my son.
Yeah. They saved me.
Yeah.
I was going under.
Yeah.
So
I was spiraling.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
That's okay. But even to walk into that building now is a sense of calm, where it wasn't when I walked in the first night.
No.
When the fear and the turmoil, and my head was spinning, and people are hugging me, and I'm like, who are you people?
You weirdos. Yeah, get off me, you weirdo.
Get away from me. I'll shake your hand. Get away from me.
Yeah.
But have that feeling of support and to be grateful, and that they are there to listen. That's what you need.
Yeah, you need to find someone who understands what you're experiencing for sure. And if it and trust your gut a little bit too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like once you get talking to someone, if it feels good, keep doing it.
Yeah. It's okay.
Yeah, okay. And then now that's a good thank you for that. What advice would you have for other leaders like yourself? Because I mean, our organizations go through reorgs all the time. I mean, I worked for AHS when it went through a massive reorg, and it was a lot like the reorg that I'm witnessing with you. It really was. I mean, it was wild. And so, what advice would you have for people who are experiencing that kind of massive change that is out of their control, and you're never going to like everything that's happening. You're not going to like the way it's happening. You're not going to be able to control it. What do you think people should do here?
Well, change is always hard. It's always hard. It's just the way it is. And having it through COVID, COVID is actually a blessing in disguise for this change. If we were fully on campus at full capacity, I don't know how we would put all these processes in place and actually have all this collaboration, even though I'm wearing a little thin on some of these Zoom and MS Teams meetings. They're exhausting.
Yeah.
But to have colleagues that are willing to listen, to have options to go to other people, right?
Yes.
Not just the same group, not to just vent, to just to stir up the chaos. That's not helpful.
No.
To work on the processes, they don't always work. It's great on paper. It looks beautiful in a Visio design. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Until you try it.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, we forgot some key components to
Where's
this.
the client in this?
Yeah. Where is the relationship with? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
There's a lot of moving parts.
Yes.
And that eventually it will work.
Yeah.
Eventually it will get smoother. Eventually it will get easier.
Yes.
But going through it is hard, and people are frustrated, and they need to vent, and they're scared, and they don't know if they're going to have a job tomorrow, and they don't know what's happening with their new role, their new boss, their new department. So there's a lot of fear.
Yes.
And you just work through it.
Yeah, and I remember there's a few things that happen with fear. I can get really caught up in fear sometimes. Well, what then this is going to happen, and then this is going to happen, and this is going to happen, this, and I get way ahead of myself. And I remember somebody leaning in to me very like this, saying, none of that's happened yet.
Yeah. Right
now, you and I are having a conversation, and none of that has happened yet. And you're like, oh yeah, right. Right now, this is what's going on, and that's what I need to focus on.
Yeah.
Instead of my fear of the catastrophe that's coming, which is always it's always a catastrophe. There's something else that I talk about when I'm facilitating leadership courses, and you're making me think about it with change. When I was doing my graduate degree, we had this guy in our class named Gord, and Gord was a carpentry teacher. And he looked like a carpentry teacher. I mean, he's just a guy in a plaid shirt and jeans. And Gord is the most laid back. He used to sit through these lectures. We'd all be frantic doing things, we're all leaders and we're going to demonstrate our leadership and all like this. And Gord would be like this, just watching everybody, kind of zen in the corner. And every now and again, he'd lean forward with something to say. And you got quiet when he leaned forward with something to say, because it was always golden. He didn't speak unless he had something to say. And there was a day when we were talking about change, and Gord said, here's how I think about change. I'm going to draw a picture. He said, I think about it like it's a tornado, like it's like all these things are flying around you, right? This, it's like in a tornado, there's a barn flying by and a cow and a tractor, right? Because, all these things are going on. And if you stand there and you stare at that, it's terrifying. He said, but we're standing in the middle of that. And what's happening in the middle of a tornado is it's very still. It's very quiet. And so we have a choice, right? I'm going to draw a picture and show it to you. We have a choice when we're standing in that space. We have a choice to either look out at the chaos and how terrifying it is, or we can look in at each other and focus on what we can control, which is the relationship, right? And if we focus on that, the rest of it will just calm down and we'll be okay. And I was like, wow, that's such a good metaphor, you know, because if we do focus on each other and how we are doing and the relationship, the processes and the things that we can't control all will sort of settle.
Yeah.
But if we're going to stare at that and obsess over that, that's stupid, that's never going to work, what about this, what about that, we're going to lose our minds, right? And that's what I hear in you. That's what I hear in you is this, you know, staring, looking in at each other and saying, well, how are you doing? How are your kittens doing? You know, how you know, where do you want to travel when this is over? You know, that kind of thing. And hats off to you, man. Like you're a champ. Like you really are using everything that you've learned. And I've told you before, I have great admiration for your relationship and people-based leadership. Honestly, it's fantastic, and it's of course been a pleasure working with you and getting to know you through incredible duress with our kids. And could you have ever imagined 7 years ago that you'd be living where you're living and you'd be thrilled to see your son show up and beaming with pride at him heading off to his education and I mean, he's using everything that he's been through to help other people. Like, oh,
yeah,
he's such a beautiful kid.
He's passionate about it.
Oh, he is. He's such a beautiful kid. Honestly, you should be very proud. Yeah,
I'm very proud.
Yes. Okay. Well, thanks, Claudia. Is there anything that you want to promote before I get off? I don't know if you have anything or not, but.
No, I think it's a lot of reflection that you have to really sit back and take in. And like you said, control the controllables. And that the relationships with other people are crucial. Mm-hmm. The chaos will still be there.
Mm-hmm. It'll settle.
Yeah.
Or it'll turn into something else.
Yeah, exactly.
Different chaos. Okay, and I will put the link for ARC in the show notes. And that should do it, I think.
Thank you.
And congratulations. Fun. Yeah, it's been great. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you.
Take care. Hello, friends. Thanks for listening. I am your host, Maureen Towns, and I am the founder of Maureen Towns Consulting. We support families who are experiencing disruptive mental health and addictions issues go from chaos to calm. If you enjoyed this podcast, please listen, share, and subscribe. And please also know that you can reach me at MaureenTowns.com, and you can reach out to me through the website, and I'm happy to chat with anybody. My work, the work that I do, is based on my 25 years working as a nurse in both the public and the private healthcare systems in Canada, as well as my facilitation and my education and my training in leadership development, as well as my experience with my own families and supporting them, both all the successes and all the struggles with mental health and addictions issues. And you can read all about those issues in my upcoming book, should be released this year. Please, should be released this year. And the book is called Broken Open. So keep your eyes peeled for that and any information on that. Again, thanks for listening. Please don't forget to share and subscribe.